guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with two more very cool brand new Bandai figures. We've got two more of those super cool capsule figures, as we've got the Styracosaurus and another version of the T-Rex. It's apparently such a popular species that they had to release it in both Wave 1 and Wave 2, but now with a totally different look for this one. And I think both of these figures, as per usual, look really quite cool. They definitely have, again, a very nice, very highly detailed look and nice paint job, again, considering their size as they are capsule figures. They're fairly small overall. So without further ado, let's jump to a closer look and check out both from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the T-Rex, you can see this particular version has its mouth in an open position, whereas the last one had its mouth kind of closed, I think, for the most part, looking just very intimidating. I mean, I think it was slightly open if I remember correctly, but I can't recall too well. But as you can see, again, this one definitely has more of like that King of the Dinosaurs sort of look here, as it's almost walking up on like a little ledge, it looks like, or maybe just somewhere, but it's letting out a big vocalization and definitely letting everyone know who the King of the Dinosaurs is. Either that, or it's attacking something that's a little bit higher up than the Tyrannosaurus is. But you can see, as far as the skin texture goes, it looks pretty decent. You've got some nice looking detail, maybe a little, muted in some areas, but for the most part, I think it looks okay. You've also got a reddish brown for the primary body color, and then a darker brown that's basically dry brushed over to highlight a lot of the detail. You can see the eyes are also painted pretty nicely considering its size, and again, for being just like a capsule figure, and again, one so small, it's got some very impressive paintwork to it, which is nice to see. As you move up, you can see the teeth, of course, are sculpted. They're a little sloppy as far as the paintwork, but not too bad. For the most part, I think they look okay. Again, like I said, for the size, fairly decent paintwork, just a little bit of sloppiness. As you look in the inside of the mouth here, you can see the tongue and everything sculpted out. You can see the detail also looks quite nice through the course of the inside of the mouth. And there's a very nice gloss coat added to the inside of the mouth. You can really see it like right there shining, giving it that nice genuine saliva wet look. You can also see a different variation of color here for the lower jaws. We have a different variation of brown. Also seems to feature a dark wash, which is nice. As you move back into the neck, you can see the T-Rex has its head turned toward its left, which is, again, causing the skin to kind of wrinkle and everything over here a little bit. You can also see tensing in the neck, which is something you would expect to see considering the dinosaur is letting out either a vocalization or attacking something. But you can also see, again, kind of like a small line of bumpy ridges sort of moving along the back of the neck right there. Again, the skin texture has a look to it where it looks like it would be very rough and rugged, kind of tough skin texture, which is pretty much exactly as I would expect for a T-Rex. As you move down, you can see the shoulder blade there protruding from the skin, maybe looking a little too shrink-wrapped, but you can see it regardless. And as you move down into the arms, we transition to a brownish tone leading down. You can see the nails are painted, the very small fingers are sculpted fairly decently, and the brown tone that we see for the underside of the lower jaw there also runs along the entire underside of the T-Rex as well, which is pretty cool, and you can see the detail on the underside looks fairly decent. As you move back into the stomach region, I think the skin texture actually looks really nice here. You've got all sorts of wrinkles and creases as the dinosaur's leg is kind of pushing into the stomach right there. As you move up, you again get that dry brushing here moving along the back where we have that darker tone. And I like that they've dry brushed it over in a way where it allows the reddish browns to sort of creep through those darker browns. As you move back into the hip region, you can really see how that dry brushing has highlighted some of the scales up there on the top of the hip. Moving down, the muscle definition is very nicely displayed. We also have a pretty smooth transition from the reddish brown to this light brown of the underside. As you move down, you've got the knee right there. You again have the calf muscle, and then leading down to the foot, you do see those reddish browns return here as you lead down into the foot, down into the toes, and then again the nails are painted with a grayish tone. As you move back up, again you lead out into the tail, and you can see a nice curve to the tail. You also have a striping effect as you lead out through the course of the tail of the T-Rex, and we continue to have that light brown tone moving along the underside of the dinosaur the entire way out as well. And if you look up here, you can see again that the detail looks pretty nice. The paintwork looks pretty nice. And you can also see a seam right here because, of course, the tail was disconnected and we had to assemble the dinosaur right there. There's also actually another seam that you may not even pick up on so much on this side, but if you actually come up here to the midsection, right along the front of the thigh here, there is a seam because that is another area where this figure had to be kind of connected. But if you turn it around, you're going to see it a little more obviously over here on this side. Again, same with the tail seam. But considering, again, that these figures have to come in a capsule, they kind of have to be, you know, smaller and compact into the capsule. So I think they actually look pretty good considering that fact. But as you move along this side, you can now see how the head is turned away from us. Again, you've got the nice looking paintwork and that mouth wide open. As you move down, you can see the tensing again in the neck over here. As we move down through the rest of the figure, for the most part, it looks pretty much the same over here as it did on the first side. You can see this arm is just a little bit further forward compared to the opposing arm. The leg is also further back on this side, which exposes a little bit more of the stomach. You can kind of see it a little bit better, but again, also, you know, allows that seam to be a lot more obvious on this side. But as you move down, you can see the bends in the toes and stuff as the T-Rex is taking a step and walking through, and then you lead out again into the really nice tail with the nice curvatures of the tail. You can also see we've got a base. The base is pretty decent. Again, the paintwork is pretty nice considering like it's got a nice few variations of browns, giving it a fairly realistic look. And again, I really am impressed with how much love and care Bandai is putting into these capsule figures. Like, for being such small figures like this, again, in capsules, like, they're really quite high quality. And then we've also got the Styracosaurus, and this one is fun because we've got, you know, a really cool diorama with all of these, but this one actually is a little bit of an action scene taking place. So first of all, as far as the Styracosaurus itself goes, you can see it is pretty nicely sculpted, and also, again, features quite a bit of coloration here as variations of browns and yellowish browns are present in the face. You've also got reddish browns up there on the top, kind of running along the horn. The horn itself is nicely sculpted, but also painted with a dark brown. Same deal as you move up here into the frill. You can see that dark brown is present up there. If my camera would focus, there we go. But as you move up into the frill, you can also see that there's like some white and yellowish spots that show up there through the course of the frill, as well as more of those reddish browns up there on the top. So again, lots of paintwork for these figures. Very impressive amounts of paintwork for these figures in considering their size. As you move down, let me get a little bit closer here. The bases sometimes get in the way a little bit when I'm trying to get a closer look. But you can see the nostrils. You can also see the mouth is sculpted and also highlighted with a darker tone. We can see that the beak is painted again with a variation of a dark brown as well. As you move back into the neck is actually in basically the same position as the T-Rex, where it's turning toward its left, and you can see a little bit of wrinkling and creasing. You can also see that dark wash again is present through the entire figure, very obvious on this one. The reddish brown returns up there on the back. As you move down along the back of the dinosaur, you can see it again leading through all the way out into the tail actually. But then as you move down to the side, you basically just have like these almost like yellowish browns through the course of the body. No other variations of color moving down that I notice outside of course, the nails being painted. You can see they are painted with a brown. And then you move out into the tail. You can see the tail has a nice curve to it. But you've got the muscle definition and everything nicely present through the course of the legs. You've got the skin wrinkling and creasing there in the stomach because both legs are kind of pushing into it. But as you move down into the base, you can see our Styracosaurus is kind of stepping up on a little ledge. And on the other side of that ledge, we've got a crocodile of some kind over here. And you can see, again, it's kind of coming up out of the water. And the Styracosaurus looks like it's just basically smacking it right in the face to try to knock it away from it and just kind of dispose of that crocodile out of the area. It looks like a crocodile to me. The snout's kind of a little more rounded, so maybe almost looks more like an alligator, but definitely I think is meant... it really does look like an alligator to me, but again, I'm not really too sure exactly what species they were going for, but you can see coloration-wise for that, we basically have a grayish tone and a little bit of dry brushing to highlight the detail, but the sculpt on that also looks pretty nice for what it is. If we can get nice and close, if my camera would focus on it, which, not going to focus too much, you can see the eyes are also painted, but they didn't put near as much paintwork into that as they did with, of course, our Styracosaurus. Still looks pretty cool, though. The actual earthy area of the base is a mixture of browns again. Similar brown, actually, to the yellowish browns that we have for the body, but you can also see, again, the darker brown underneath, and that looks pretty decent. And again, as you move up, you'll see basically the same thing on this side for the Styracosaurus as what we had seen on the first side moving through. You can see, again, the detail looks really good. The paint looks really good. That dark wash definitely helps to give it a little variation of color through the course of the body. And I think they did a very good job on this one. The actual sculpting and everything of the skin texture, as you can see, looks really nice. I think the T-Rex maybe had slightly muted detail, whereas this one actually looks really good as far as the detail goes. But again, I love the fact that they create these in very cool little dioramas and stuff. Again, considering they're small capsule figures, they're really quite high quality. As far as a size goes, both are pretty small, of course, being capsule figures. For a length on the T-Rex, we're looking at about 5 inches and an eighth or so, or around 13 centimeters. And then for a height, about just shy of 3.5 inches, or heading toward 9 centimeters, but not quite there. And then for the Styracosaurus, lengthwise, you are looking at about almost actually on the dot for 3 inches, or a little over 7.5 centimeters. And then for a height to the top of that horn, about 3.25 inches, or approaching 8.5 centimeters, but not quite there. For size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Bandai capsule figures. And you can see again that they are definitely on the smaller side, as I've mentioned quite a few times. But you'll also notice that if you are familiar with these figures, if you happen to have seen the reviews I did for the first 4, you'll already know the size, because these ones really don't differ in size at all. And just to further show you that with one more comparison, because I feel like that's all we really need, we have the previous capsule version of the T-Rex compared to the new version, and as you can see, they are pretty much the same size. So these capsule figures are continuously released in waves with 4 different figures. I, as per usual, just like I did last time, am going to review these in 2 and then 2, just because it makes it a little easier and stops the review from being really long. But again, 2 more very cool entries into this Bandai capsule figure line, and I think the T-Rex here is actually maybe even a little bit better than the Tyrannosaurus we had the first time around. Though I will say, I am very much so a big fan of the first version. I really like the pose and everything to it. But this one also looks really good. The sculpt looks very nice. Definitely has a menacing look to it as far as the pose goes. So I like the fact that they, if they were going to re-release a T-Rex, I like that they gave this such a different look as far as the pose goes compared to the other one. But also kind of similar as far as the color scheme. If you look at the other one in comparison to this one, it has kind of like the same thing as far as the color scheme, where it ends up with like a striping out on the tail and stuff, but a very different tone of color to this one compared to the other one. So maybe it makes it look like we've got a male and female, which is pretty cool. But again, very nicely sculpted, nicely painted, very impressive paintwork considering this is a kind of a minifigure. So the T-Rex is pretty cool. The Styracosaurus as well is awesome, and I would say probably one of my favorites overall from these figures, just because it does have like a really cool diorama going on with a crocodilian or something of some kind, or an alligator, and you've got the Styracosaurus kind of giving it like a boot in the face to just get it away from it. But the Styracosaurus overall also features some very nice sculpt and paint throughout. The coloration looks very natural, I would say. They did a great job applying washes and stuff like that, and a good bit of variation of color, again giving it an extremely high quality look. And of course, everything down there on the base also looks quite nice. So overall, 2 very cool figures yet again, and 2 figures I absolutely recommend picking up. So if you are interested in doing that, I will include a link in the description to AliExpress if I can in fact find these. These are still very new. They have just recently come out. I was only able to acquire them so quickly thanks to my good friend Dino Mike Mac. So I will try to find a link to include. Don't know absolutely for sure because I don't think I've seen them on there yet, but if I can, I will of course include that link in the description. Otherwise, make sure you pick these up if you can find them, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.